The Dean campaign was credited with several major innovations. Three really important ones that we should talk about here. First was the fact that it was the first interactive communication between a campaign and its supporters. For instance, the Dean campaign had the first political blog on a campaign website. This was not something that the Dean campaign came up with on their own. It was actually someone that was outside the campaign, Jerome Armstrong, who really came up with this idea. And Jerome Armstrong is also someone who probably very few of us have ever heard of, but he was one of the very first very successful political bloggers. He set up a website called dd.com, and ultimately this website, or his political blog, was something that he really was interested in and thought that it could help a campaign that he supported. He created a mock-up of this potential blog, brought it to the campaign, and within a few days he was hired on to the campaign and started running their political blog. There was a lot of interactivity between campaign supporters and the campaign itself, and this was really, really important as the evolution of online campaigning moved forward. Second was a major innovation that included the use of online communication tools to organize and coordinate offline political activities. And this was really important. The campaign collaborated with another third-party website called Meetup.com. And Meetup.com was a website that allowed users to sign in online and find out about real-world meetings happening offline in their area. So ultimately, Dean collaborated with Meetup, and they were able to provide a web-based tool that would allow people to meet face-to-face, organize, get work on door-knocking campaigns or phone banking or whatever the case might be. And this was a huge transition when you're talking about using new technology to really fuel traditional campaigning, and we all know that traditional campaigning is still very important. The internet is not going to replace going door to door. It's not going to replace making phone calls, but it can make that much easier. And this connection that the Dean campaign made was a huge innovation moving forward. Third, and finally, Dean brought online campaign fundraising to a whole new level, building on McCain's success in 2000. The Dean campaign raised approximately $22 million online in the lead up to the Iowa caucuses. The Iowa caucuses were, for Dean, unfortunately the peak of his campaign, and they did all of this fundraising relying heavily on small donors as opposed to nearly all of his opponents, which used these large donor traditional format of raising money. This small donor base is something that we'll see also as we start talking about the transition of interest groups, looking at examples like MoveOn.org that we'll talk much more about later on in the course. As Howard Dean was building momentum leading up to the Iowa caucuses, it really led to an unfortunate result. All of that momentum was really dashed when he came in third during the Iowa caucuses, and famously had a speech afterwards that was trying to rally the crowd. Unfortunately, it was remembered almost entirely for the scream that happened at the end, which sounded a little something like this. And that was not surprisingly found to be unpresidential, made fun of on late-night talk shows, and led to Dean's campaign really fading fairly quickly after Iowa. The result is that Matthew Heinemann, one of the leading scholars on internet politics, noted for months leading up to the Iowa caucuses, the Dean campaign seemed poised to do for the internet what Kennedy-Nixon debate did for television, providing an undeniable demonstration of the new medium's political power. The result, according to Heinemann, proved anticlimactic. That's true if you're talking about Dean taking this new tool, taking these new technologies, integrating them into his campaign, and then ultimately winning the White House. Yes, it would be anticlimactic if that was your goal. But I think that Heinemann might have missed something here, which is that what Dean did and what the Dean campaign did in 2004 was used in 2006 and most notably in 2008 by Barack Obama, just bringing it to an entirely new level, learning from the mistakes made there and then ultimately building on the successes and building a very formidable and ultimately very successful campaign, integrating and embedding online technology throughout. So Heinemann is right that ultimately this had this potential of redefining internet politics when it came to campaigning moving forward, and maybe it didn't. But I think that the innovations here were greater than any innovation in online campaigning up until that point. And Obama's campaign team credits the Dean campaign largely with laying that foundation and laying that framework upon which they built in 2008 a truly impressive and sort of revolutionary breakthrough in online campaigning. As we move forward into 2008, we'll talk extensively on the Obama campaign, what they did, how they did it, but first we want to focus on what we've talked about up until this point. Online communication innovation has grown dramatically, starting in 1992 when you had the first websites and email, and then you have text messaging starting not until 2000. Blogging began in the Dean campaign in 2003. And in 2004, you have the very, very beginnings of social networking. Facebook technically existed at that time. It really wasn't a factor in the 2004 presidential campaign. But by 2006, YouTube and Facebook started to play a role. And ultimately, by 2008, both YouTube, Facebook, and now Twitter really became central in what was going on in the first Obama campaign. And then ultimately, by 2010, 2012, and now moving forward, we see that social media is just growing in importance, and it will be interesting to see how much emphasis the different campaigns are focusing on their social media outreach and the data that they're collecting through social media. In 2008, we know that Obama won, and most of the historians talk about the Obama campaign, and we'll talk a lot about it here too. But one of the most notable innovators, especially early on in the campaign, was actually former Libertarian and former Republican candidate Ron Paul. Ron Paul built on what Howard Dean did in 2004, focusing on meetups organized in support of his campaign. However, what was really interesting was that the Ron Paul online campaign was organized largely independent from his campaign. As of January 2008, there were more than 1,140 Ron Paul meetup groups around the country, organized in 900 cities with more than 67,000 members. And almost all of this was done independently from the Ron Paul campaign. What was important here was not that this brought Ron Paul to the White House, obviously it didn't, but that it showed how powerful outside groups could be when it came to a democratizing effect of online campaigning. And we know that that definitely helped Obama. We're going to pause here so that you can see the single video that was watched the most during the 2008 campaign, a video that was not created by the Obama campaign but clearly helped him with the help of some serious Hollywood star power.